and dragons, the news we crave. Under neon lights we take a stand. Knights and wizards across the land.
Household, where the pixies dwell, where the fairies dance, and they do dance well. Household, it's a game about pixies and fairies in a giant abandoned house during the Regency period. So it's Jane Austen meets the Barrowers, which is one of the stranger concepts I've ever heard for a game, but for some reason it works in my brain. Boom, boom. What's up, my nerds? It's 8:17 in the morning. I am the OGGM broadcasting live from Site B, located in the mythical land of Fresno, Nevada, which doesn't in fact actually exist. And we're doing another look-see. We're doing a look-see at Household. This is one of the many games we purchased last month in that huge Humble Bumble. 57 games for $40. Some of the games have been good. Some of the games have been bad. Some of the games have been so weird, I was just like, nope. This one stood out to me because, one, it's just an idea that I've never heard before. It's just so bizarre. I mean, the idea of teeny little things having teeny little adventures isn't that news. We go all the way back to Bunnies and Burrows, or games like Mouth Sitter or Redwall or stuff like that. You know, The Secret of Nimh, which I absolutely love, is one of my favorite movies. Action figures going on adventures, which is another idea I absolutely love. I've always liked the idea of how do teeny things interact with a normal world. You know, that's why my goblins, when I run, are always armed with things you'd find in the house. You know, you see a goblin wearing a spaghetti colander and wielding a rolling pin, because that's things at their size, you know, and having worked with littles for so long in the school system and watching how they dramatic play and how they turn things into other things. So it's always been a concept for a game I've absolutely loved. So I was very curious to see what Household is about. The premise itself is, wow, just so it's pixies and fairies and other little teeny creatures in a giant abandoned house during the Regency period. So it's Jane Austen meets the Barrowers. It's definitely the Barrowers. I mean, it's heavily influenced by the Barrowers. If you're not familiar with the Barrowers series, it's basically, or the Littles series, it's, you know, same thing. Pixies, fairies, whatever you want to call them, living in a house and trying not to get caught or eaten by the cat. It's the Secret of Nimh. So let's take a look and see what Household is all about. It's from twolittilemice, which means it's going to be weird. It was made in 2022. It won a ton of awards. It's got 306 pages, which is about 106 pages too much. This is definitely one of those questions where, does this setting need its own game, or could have this just been an expansion for an existing system? We know Wizards of the Coast tried to do something like this with their whatever it was called, Witchlight or whatever, which is just awful. But yeah, so I love this idea. I don't know if it needs its own game system. Could have easily just been an expansion for D20 or Shadowdark. I think it would have worked really great with the World of Darkness. I mean, they've already tried to do something like that with World of Darkness with Changeling, so it could have just been part of the World of Darkness. I don't know if it needs its own system. Let's see what system it uses. And we'll start by seeing if there's a character record sheet, which is always a good way to do it. It's written like a novel, like a journal. Like, you know, you found some old journal of the case studies that your crazy uncle did of the pixies and fairies living in his garden, you know. So here's the character record sheet, and for some reason it's sideways. Stop doing this. And our stats are society, academia, war, and street. It uses cards. Okay, so it uses the playing card system. And pips. All right, and all right, so it doesn't look like it's based upon anything else. It looks like it has an ice life path system. So this could be an independent system created specifically for this. Preface. Preface is pretty obvious. There's pixies living in your house. The name has two meanings. One, because it takes place, the entire world is a house. And two, because we're dealing with the politics between different types of households of pixies. You know, you got the pixie household, the fairy household, the leprechaun household. So it's a double meaning. Again, very much the Regency period, you know, Bridgerton, right? House O'Clark, which is old money, and House Stevenson, which is new money, and House Cromwell, which, you know, can trace its lineage all the way back to Queen, you know, Elizabeth, and the different types of political houses that were going on during the Regency period, and how the Regency period was, you know, old England, old money, old, you know, landed, and then the new money from the West, the new money coming from industrialization, and these jumped up families who suddenly were filthy rich and moving into the Regency period. Yeah, if you've watched Bridgerton or Jane Austen or anything like that, you know the whole thing about that. So there's obviously got to be a lot of politics in this game, as well as just adventuring. So it's not just D&D for teeny creatures, but there's also the whole political machinations and the households fighting each other, or at least you assume there would be. So again, yeah, it's written like the secret journal of somebody who stumbled across this world and was, you know, which is a good way to do it. It's just, yeah, it's very World of Darkness. A lot of stories, and then the actual fluff, then a lot of stories, then the actual crunch, then blah. So yeah, so here we got the world. So here's what I'm talking about, you know. A spoon becomes a pole arm in the arms of something that size. And I love that idea, you know. So more background, you know, a snail becomes a mount. Background, the different type of creatures that you can play. Again, see, here it is. We're using a button as a shield. We've got this little sewing needle sword. She's using a piece of, you know, a spool of thread. This guy's armed with a key. Yeah, I just love this. This guy's dressed as a plague doctor because, sure, that's something pixies would copy. Look what the humans are dressing like. We should dress like that too. I guess, you know, I'm assuming there's something in here of why they dress like humans, especially if they're in an abandoned house. So here we've got everything we know about the fairies. Don't know which type of fairies we were talking. You know, I usually default to midsummers for my fairies. But, you know, there's so many different takes on where fairies came from and what fairies are like and stuff, and what the world of fairy is like. But this is, you know, the Regency period. So this will be the very, I would think, Shakespearean. But so here's one of the fairy family. Newt's, you know, all the different things about fairy realm, armed forces. Got some Napoleonics going on here with the looks. Again, using a sewing needle or toothpick as a sword. Love that. I don't know why they dress like humans though. Then we have the Bogarts, which are, I guess, I don't know what these are. Brownies. Again, just house pixies. Again, you know, using a key as a pole arm. Just love that. I love the imagery. I love the amount of work that's gone into researching these different creatures and what the world of these different creatures are like, or at least how these creatures were pictured during that time period. Look, she's armed with a spoon. And needles. Yeah. Then we have the sprites, the mischievous tricksters. These are sprites as elementals, it looks like, because we've got undines, water sprites, salamanders, fire sprites, stuff like that. So I guess they're doing the different domains. Again, see how the Regency, the soldier, the Napoleonics, the British military, the British Navy, the British Marines, everything that's going on, you know. A hairpin is a weapon. So I love the imagery. I love the idea of these action figure sized creatures using real world things in new and fascinating ways. How does something this size interpret the world? What becomes the tools, the weapons, the houses, the everyday things when you're, the size of an action figure? Then we have the slough. Never heard. What are these? Oh, these are from the Wild Hunt. Okay, so these are the creatures of the Wild Hunt, looks like. With the names like Slough, sounds Celtic. So are these sort of like the bad guys? The expert travelers, nomads. Okay. Looks like they are bug people. See, using a cog. I guess I love that. Again, armed with a key. This one somehow turned a key into a gun. I don't know how that works. Or why the pixies would have guns. I guess, again, copying the humans. I'm assuming. I haven't seen any. This is a lot of pages wasted on character building. Okay, so who's my character? My character is a guy, a pixie, a fairy, a tinny, a borrower. It could be a fairy, a bogart, a spite, or a slough. I'll be a fairy. I can choose the profession of soldier, scholar, hunter, criminal, duelist, or animal handler. Okay, so the classic D&D things. I don't know why you would have to have duelist and soldier as separate. Anybody could be a duelist. So now we're getting into musketeers. We're getting into that stuff. The idea that there's people who would fight duels for you, which was a thing. You could hire somebody to fight your duel for you. And there were professional duelists. And then you pick your skills. And apparently it uses playing cards. And you fill out your character record sheet, all the different steps. A lot of wasted space, the different professions. How does the system work? How does this playing card system work? Let's go to the back to the table of contents because I'm curious. How to play. It's an exciting back and forth between narrator and players. Okay, so every household is meant to be played with a special size of D6. Each face of your household die is decorated with a different colored symbol to make it easier to recognize. Success. These personalized are not needed to play. They make for a tailored experience. You can use normal D6s, but they also have these playing card looking D6s, or you could just use playing cards. Dice rolls. Action rolls and reaction rolls. Okay. Game terms. This could have been put at the end of the book. Action rolls. When you're trying to do something. You state your goal. You explain how you're going to be doing about it. Your goal. The DM determines the difficulty. You add up your dice and modifier. The player rolls the dice and tallies up the success. The narrator describes the consequences. Okay. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve it? A little storytelling in there. A little, how difficult it is. All right. It's a lot of, oh, here we go. Okay. So here's the difficulty here. I guess easy, blah, blah, blah. Ridiculously hard. And then what you have to, we think we've seen this before, right? The dice pools. You'll have a dice pool composed of 1 dice for every point you have in that skill, plus 1 dice for every point you have in the second skill. So, for example, if you're making an action roll with eloquence and society, you'll have a dice pool composed of 1 dice from every point you have in eloquence, plus 1 dice you have every point in society. Okay, so we've seen this before. I've got 2 points in, society and 2 points in elegance, so I'm rolling 4 dice. They have to be different so I can tell the difference between which pool, right? Basic success, 2 of a kind. Critical success, 3 of a kind. Extreme success, 4 of a kind. Impossible success, 5 of a kind. Jackpot, 6 or more of a kind. All right, so what's the difference between a critical success and a jackpot success? What do I get? I guess you're saying, since it's never going to happen, don't worry about it. We're not going to explain. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And how the different suits work. I mean, do they have to be the same suit? So, yeah, okay. I think we've seen this before. It's an overly complicated way to do the D6 system. And then there's the gambling involved. How many dice don't, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we've seen this. Yeah, so what is a extreme success? How is an extreme success different than an impossible success? How is an impossible success different than a critical success? How is a normal failure worse than a critical failure? How is a critical failure worse than an extreme failure? What if I roll all the wrong dice? I guess we can, yeah. Okay, so we got base, blah, blah. Then there's reaction rules. Okay, what's the difference? What is the difference between that success and the other success? It's a basic success. Then if you score higher than the success, you get additional benefits that you can add to it. And if you roll jackpot, you get to take over and describe the thing where it ends up with you, as opposed to a normal success where you get to not describe how it succeeds or whatever. Usually I have them tell me what they're going to do. And then if they succeed, I say, okay, you do this. Or if they, sort of succeed, I say, you tried to do that, but what happened was this. Or if they fail, it's usually something like, oh no, you slipped. Oh no, you dropped it. Oh no, it broke. Whatever. That I have to have a special role if I want to describe how my character succeeds. This, whatever. Maybe I don't know. Just seems unnecessary, but okay. The system seems a little overly complicated for, doing something we've seen 1,000 times before. How do you turn a key into a gun? I don't, do you explain why they've chosen to mimic humans? Okay. I love this idea. I love everything about this idea. I would play in this game. Does it need its own system? I don't think so. I think it would have been fine if it was an expansion for an existing system. I don't think it needed its own system. That said, the system is a D6 dice pool. I love me D6 dice pools. It's a unique take on the D6 dice pool. A little unnecessarily complicated. That doesn't really need to be, but okay, whatever. They're trying to take something that's worked and make it unique to their system. Okay, I'll give them that. Modeling it after playing cards. So I guess if you don't have dice, you can use the cards. And if you don't have the cards, you can use the dice. And the symbolism of the playing cards is so very much important to that time period, except, of course, at that time period, people weren't playing poker. They were playing games like whist, and stuff like that. Poker is very much an American Old West game. English was playing games like whist. Prepare about a rudder of whist before you go there, Hood Hemsley. Oh, I suppose I have time. What are we betting? That kind of thing. With a bottle of port that you got to talk like that, I think, if you're playing this game. You got to be very, very British. Very, very British during the Regency area. Love the Regency area. Love Secret of Nimh. Love the idea. A lot of questions that I don't know if the game explains a lot. Like why do they mimic humans as opposed to having unique fashion that is unique to them? And how do you turn a key into a gun? There is an equipment section in wealth, equipment, and gadgets, maybe on page 156. That's maybe how they explain how you turn key into a gun. Why would the pixies need gunpowder if they have pixie magic? Or is the key? Anyways, image-wise, it's cool. Physics-wise, yeah. How do you turn a key into a gun, and why would you turn a key into a gun? You'd have to hollow out the key and then put in all the machinations to make it work like a gun. At that point, shouldn't you have just built a gun? And why do the pixies have gunpowder? Wouldn't they be using rubber bands? But whatever. Okay, it's a fantasy setting. It's a dice pool. Love me dice pools. Love the ideas. Don't think it needs to be its own system. I understand why they chose the own system, because it's their little weird D6 playing card system, and it's supposed to be copying playing card games like poker, but they didn't play poker during the Regency period. They played other games. But yeah, I'd play this. I'd run this. I don't know if I'd run it in their system. I might, run it using Shadowdark or another system that's a little bit easier. If I was going to use a dice pool system, I'd just use a much more plainer, simpler dice pool system, like the dice pool system from West Games D6, or the dice pool system from Year Zero, or even the very obscure dice pool system from Atomic Highway. Or I would have made it a world book for Year of Darkness and using the Year of Darkness dice pool system. It does seem to feel like it could be an expansion for one of the World of Darknesses. But they already did a World of Darkness pixie game with Changeling. So yeah, Midsummer's Night's Dream meets The Littles, meets Jane Austen, meets Secret of Nimh in the Regency period of England, in an abandoned house where these political groups of different types of little fairies are engaging in both, physical conflict and physical adventure, and more importantly, the whole political machinations of old money versus new money versus Regency money. So yeah, Bridgerton, all that stuff, all that fun stuff from that time period. The last great age of adventure, or whatever you want to call the Regency period. Just watch Bridgerton, or watch Jane Austen, or watch any, the TV show or movies made about that time period, and just replace the characters with pixies. And you pretty much get how to run this game. So yeah, I like this. I love this idea. Yeah, minor issues with it, but all on its own, I think it would be really fun. And it's unique. I mean, it's one of a kind, right? I can't think of any other games that have done this idea. Plenty of games about little folk, plenty of games about the Regency period, but to combine the two, yeah, I like it. I would say, yeah, use my link down below to get your own copy if you want to play this system, or use it as a world book and use it in a different system. That would be the only thing I would say, is maybe it doesn't need its own system. But other than that, yeah, like, share, subscribe. If you appreciate me doing this every day, consider supporting me through the various ways you can support me. The holidays are coming up. And yeah, I did an interview yesterday that was like 2 hours long on Random World. So if you want to check out me talking about some of my product and some of my plans for the future, you can check that out. Till next time, have a great day. Stay safe out there. Happy Halloween. See ya. Household.
Monsters lurking in the night, heroes ready for the fight. Dice are clattering on the wood, storylines misunderstood. Get the